Who are the top 25 NFL players of all time? Welcome, football fans, to another BLV NFL reaction video. In this video, the top 25 players of all time, according to CBS. Are they correct or are they crazy? From what I've heard, this list is not very accurate. So, I'm sure to rant. Gronk, spike the like button if that sounds good. And don't be a jabroni. Subscribe for more NFL reactions just like this. And as always, guys, let me know in the comments. What do you think? Is this list accurate? What is the most egregious ranking on this list? And which player out of all the players in NFL history should be on this list that isn't? Let's get to it. Let's break it down, and I will give you my thoughts. Let's go. Brutal honesty. First reaction. CBS, I hope you stepped it up, because I am going to tear you to shreds if this list stinks, because I care about these lists. I care that they're accurate, because we have 12-year-olds on the internet searching up who the best players of all time are, and if you do not have an accurate list, I was one of those kids not that long ago. Okay, maybe a little long ago, but I was one of those kids looking for the research, looking for the real deal. And so I'm here to speak for little Mitch, to speak for the little football fans, to actually give them some insight who the best players of all time actually are. So here it is. Some guy named Brian on CBS made this list ranking the top 25 players in NFL history. Tom Brady takes the top spot. Patrick Mahomes slips after a Super Bowl loss. Interesting that you can get worse after going to another Super Bowl. That doesn't really make sense to me, but we'll see what he has to say. I just don't know how people use their logic. Anyways, you could have made like a better argument, but that's only the headline, so I'll cut him a break. And of course, Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes are the cover artists, also on a Madden together as well. Individual success and accolades won, dominance during his era, longevity and career milestones achieved, enduring impact and legacy, team success and championships won, and ranking relative to his position are all intact here and all included in this list. Okay, so let's begin at number 25 with Don Hudson, wide receiver of the Green Bay Packers, once upon a time. Okay, I would agree that he belongs on this list. For his era, arguably the best player, right? Very early NFL days, arguably the most accomplished receiver, even including Jerry Rice, the most dominant player at that position when you look at what he was able to achieve. Now, obviously, the Packers, the way they played at that time, or the way that Don Hudson was able to win an MVP, right? Like, multi-time, I think, even. The way they played compared to other teams and other wide receivers, maybe we're not able to put up the same success or achievement, right? So that kind of does change the way you look at things. But 99 career touchdowns at that time, that's still 11th highest in the NFL, as it says in the article here. That's incredible, right? First player in NFL history to record 1,000 yards in a season. He led the NFL in receiving 7 times, receptions 8 times, and touchdown catches on multiple occasions. So there it is right there. If you're including achievements, if you're including accolades, if you're including maybe even impact, which I don't think he actually listed, Don Hudson belongs on the list. So that's fair. I think some people rank him as high as the second best receiver of all time. That's fair. Now, it's also difficult to just get into the whole conversation about like era versus era, player in this era versus that era. that's a really difficult conversation. I tried to take that out of the conversation when discussing these players, but Don Hudson is a fair inclusion. I think 25 is probably a close to fair ranking. At number 24, Tony Gonzalez. I wouldn't include him in my top 25 players of all time. I personally don't think he's the greatest tight end of all time. Now, in terms of accolades and achievements, he may be, but if you were to include the team success portion along with dominance portion, I think that would belong to Gronk, okay? And also just skill set portion, I think Gronk is the greatest tight end, most dominant tight end of all time. So I would have Gronk on this list. We'll see if Gronk is or is not on this list, and that will change my perspective of the ranking. Personally, though, with or without Gronk, I would not have Tony Gonzalez this high, despite his achievements in his career. I think most of his accolades and achievements were due to his longevity. He played 17 years in the NFL, right? He was a Pro Bowler at 23 and a Pro Bowler at 37. Obviously phenomenal. And I'd probably put him at number 2 or number 3 tight end of all time. I think the only other one I'd put in the inclusion or on the list is Travis Kelce. Right? Gonzalez was selected to 12 other Pro Bowls while becoming the most prolific tight end in NFL history. He is 3rd all-time in receptions, 6th in career receiving yards, and 8th in career touchdowns. But my argument would be that if you were to pick one tight end for one game in the history of the NFL, you probably wouldn't pick Tony Gonzalez. I think a majority of people would pick Gronk, and then I think actually the second pick would be Travis Kelce. And then I think some older generations might pick like Kellen Winslow, and I think that some others might even say that Antonio Gates was in the same category as Tony Gonzalez. Fair or not, I think even some modern fans would include George Kittle in the conversation. So I just don't see Tony Gonzalez so far and away better than some of these other guys where he would be included on this list. I don't even think he's the greatest tight end of all time, as good as he is. And I don't mean to hate. I'm just kind of giving my perspective. Okay. At number 23, Gale Sayers. Now, as amazing as Gale Sayers is, as prolific as Gale Sayers is, I don't think he belongs on this list because he had such a short career, right? Like incredible talent. If you go back and watch his highlights, this guy would have been incredible in all eras. His quickness, like his change of direction skills is all-time stuff. Like maybe the best of all time. Like his ability to get through a tight window of space is just like insane. His stop-start. Okay. And just he moved so uniquely in that way. He was also a great returner and a great running back. And he was also very good at catching the ball. So in all areas, Gale Sayers was a special football player in all areas, right? The Kansas Comet. And in some ways, if you do include Gale Sayers, then again, will Gronk be on the list? Because they're very similar in terms of their short career, but legitimate dominance. Okay. He amassed 9,435 combined net yards, scored 336 points in 68 games, which is insane. Along with being one of the greatest running backs, he retired as the NFL's all-time leader in kick return yards. That's a fair argument. As a rookie, he had 20 touchdowns in just 14 games. That included 6 in one game. So yeah, Gale Sayers was incredible, but I think if you're talking all-time running backs, where does he actually rank? Like 5th, 6th on the list, probably for most people, I would think. So for me, I just wouldn't include that player in my top 25. He's certainly top 50, right? But top 25 feels a bit dicey. Number 22, Rod Woodson. Another player that I'm not sure, I don't think I would include in my top 25. As good as he was, as versatile as he was at safety and defensive back. And guys, as I continue to go down this list, I'll be able to see which players have been left off to give you a better idea of who I would actually include over these players. Because I know I'm just sitting here saying I wouldn't include this guy. Well, who would I put, over him, right? One of the greatest athletes who has ever played in the NFL, Woodson excelled during his 17 career year as a corner, safety, and returner. Defensive Player of the Year in 1993. He made history 2 years later by becoming the first athlete in a major American professional sport to return to play in the same season after undergoing a major knee surgery. I actually didn't know that. That's a pretty cool stat, and that's pretty awesome. 5 years after that, Woodson played an integral role with the Ravens. He definitely did finish his career there. He was a part of a lot of great defenses. He reached the Super Bowl with the third team, the Raiders, 2 years later, after leading the league in interceptions at 37. Again, I think a player that would definitely be top 50, but I don't know if he was, if you're like talking about, okay, top 3 to 5 corners of all time, where does he rank on that list? If you're asking me for a shutdown cornerback, I don't exactly think that was Rod Woodson, right? I think he was more of a playmaker. And also, if you're talking about the top 3 to 5 safeties of all time, he's probably not top 3, but he's probably in the 4 to 5 range. That's just me. I don't know, right? Like, that's kind of like where I see it. But maybe he's third on the safety list or somewhere around there. But to me, like, I just feel like he was amazing as a defensive back and could do everything, but he wasn't incredible at one of the positions to where, like, he would be top 3 in either category. That's why I wouldn't have him in the top 25. That's my argument against it, but hey, that's just me. Number 21, Alan Paige. Definitely a great inclusion. I think he's definitely top 25 of all time. And I think his stats and accolades speak for itself. So he anchored the Vikings' legendary Purple People Eater defense. Very important information. They were dominant for a good portion of the NFL, in the early days. He was a MVP, the first defensive player to win an MVP. That is a huge check mark. Okay. They went to the Super Bowl, I believe, multiple times, and they won the NFC title 3 times with him. Okay. And he finished his career with 3 extremely solid seasons with the Bears, including 3 sacks in his final game, 148 and a half career sacks, unheard of number for a defensive tackle. Yeah, like, he was a game changer along the defensive line. He was an MVP defensive player, right? There's not many of those in the history of the NFL. He's on a top 5, top 6 defensive player of all time type of list. So that's why he should be on this list. Number 20, Anthony Munoz. Can't disagree. Best left tackle of all time by many metrics. All pros, 9, right? 11 straight Pro Bowls. He was also on 2 Super Bowl teams, so he had the individual accolades as an offensive lineman, but he also had the rare thing of the blend of both, where offensive linemen typically, even if they're amazing, like Joe Thomas, for example, they never actually do anything on a team because they're not that impactful. Well, Munoz had both of those. And he was also pass protecting for 2 MVPs, as they say in this article. So yeah, he could even be higher. I would make an argument that the best left tackle of all time should probably be top 15, right? So 20 seems low. Emmitt Smith at 19. I can understand why he's on the list. He's the all-time leading rusher, and I don't know if he'll be surpassed anytime soon. I don't know if he would be this high, but I can understand it. The small but strong running back was the engine behind the Cowboys dynasty. He won 4 rushing titles, Super Bowl MVPs and league MVPs, 3 Super Bowls. Smith continued to churn out 1,000 yards after the Cowboys championship years and remains the NFL's all-time leader in rushing and touchdowns too. So obviously, my dad, Cowboys fan, huge Cowboys fan during the 90s, of course. And he often doesn't think, he kind of like, I almost think he underrates Emmitt Smith, but like he often gives the credit to the overall offensive line and the team more than Emmitt Smith. So I, give his opinion a lot of weight. I think Emmitt Smith was an incredible player that was in a perfect situation, and that's why he amassed all these yards and touchdowns. I think the most incredible part about Emmitt Smith was his longevity, his toughness. That's, to me, like the most incredible thing. Like, this guy played in the biggest games of his career with like his shoulder torn off. You know what I mean? Like, this guy was an absolute demon out there. So I would definitely consider him in the top 25, but I do think there's about 3 running backs that I would have over him in the history of the NFL, and I'm sure they're all on this list. At number 18, John Elway. I would not have John Elway in my top 25. And the reason is, I don't know if he's even a top 8 quarterback of all time. John Elway is one of the most talented quarterbacks of all time, but from an accolade perspective, he did attend 5 Super Bowls, and he won 2 later in his career once he got a great coach in Mike Shanahan and a very good team. But at that point, he was actually not really the driving force of those teams. He was actually a better player earlier in his career when they were coming up short against the great NFC teams that he had to play. And he kind of dominated the AFC for a large portion of that, even more so than Dan Marino, who was also in that conference, right? On top of that, I would say, one of the best arms of all time, one of the best athletes of all time, but, not one of the most refined decision makers. Very good playmaker, but the stats are, for his era, good, but not phenomenal. I think he's more so known for his physical ability and his winning more than anything else. I would also say that he was able to carry a lot of teams very well, but he, to me, would not be in the top 25 of all time. He's a top 100 player, maybe a top 75 player of all time, but if he's like your 7th or 6th or 8th quarterback of all time, which feels fair, maybe he's as high as 5th, maybe. He's not top 25. I know that quarterbacks carry a lot of weight, but to me, that's not fair, right? That's just in my opinion. At number 17, Randy Moss. I think I would maybe have Randy Moss higher, but I got to see the names that are on this list. Moss's nickname, the Freak, was fitting as he possessed talents that at times appeared to be otherworldly. 17 touchdowns as a rookie, 23 touchdowns in 2007. That basically speaks to Randy Moss's career. Like, when he was at his best, there was simply no playmaker in NFL history that was more unstoppable and honestly more impactful. This is the argument for Randy Moss, right? Randy Moss was on, at 2 separate times, the highest scoring offense in NFL history. There is no other player in the history of the NFL that has basically done that, except for Wes Welker, believe it or not. But that is the argument for Randy Moss, where he was so impactful that he basically wrecked the NFL. Like, he basically changed the NFL. He altered how defenses played. He basically created cover 2. You know what I'm saying? Not Patrick Mahomes, Randy Moss. Okay? Just throwing that out there. At number 16, Joe Greene, 100% deserves to be on this list. 100% believe this is an accurate ranking. If not, I think he could be higher. Okay, I think he is, like they say here, the backbone of the Steelers dynasty. I think he is the guy. Like, out of all the guys, Jack Lambert, Terry Bradshaw, Lynn Swann, Franco Harris, all the names, right? You could go through. Mel Blount. Go through all the names. Ham. It's Joe Greene. Like, the guy that you think of with the Coca-Cola. Like, that's who you think of when you come to the Steelers dynasty. And to me, Defensive Player of the Year 2 times, arguably led the greatest defense of all time in 1974 and maybe even 1976. But the Steelers, I think that defense is the greatest defense of all time. When you consider the players, when you consider the domination, when you consider the team success, I think that the Steel Curtain is the greatest defense in NFL history. So certainly deserves to be there. Absolute monster. Monster. Number 15, Aaron Donald. This is an interesting one because this is a more recent name, and it's hard to categorize in my mind where Aaron Donald would possibly rank. But when considering his accolades, like 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, there's only 2 other people, I think, in the history of the NFL to achieve that. He was an All-Pro 8 times in 9 years, which is pretty insane. He reached a Pro Bowl in each of his last 10 seasons, right? And he was like PFF's number 1 player. He was like the best player in football for a couple years. That's pretty crazy, right? Like, that's only a short list of defensive players. Typically, that accolade is reserved for an epic running back season or a quarterback, right? Aaron Donald was legitimately the best player in the NFL for about 2 years, 3 years maybe, right? So at number 15, I can understand it. I'm honestly not going to debate against it. Like, I haven't really considered where I would put Aaron Donald yet. It's been that recent to me where I don't think the legacy yet has kind of kicked in for my brain. So I need some more time. But guys, in the comments, let me know, where would you rank Aaron Donald all time? Number 14, Ray Lewis. I do agree that Ray Lewis is ahead of Aaron Donald, but I could see an argument for Aaron Donald over Ray Lewis. Just to me, like, Ray Lewis carries that mythical status that I don't think Aaron Donald in my heart carries yet. And that's the nostalgic factor for me. And that's where it bleeds in. Like, Ray Lewis is very nostalgic, right? He was on the cover of the first Madden that I ever really played, like, a lot of. Like Madden 2005, Ray Lewis was on the cover of that game. Okay, that just speaks to like the nostalgia of Ray Lewis, and then that bleeds into the rest of that time of him facing the Patriots over the years, and just the kind of the Ravens being the defensive team of the era that I grew up watching, right? Like, that was the team that was known for defense in the same way that the Steelers were in the 70s, so it's just a very different vibe between Ray Lewis and Aaron Donald in my heart. And that's where things change, right? But he was the best player on the historically great 2000s Ravens defense. And not only 2000, but they had historic defenses in 2004, in 2006, in 2008. They had historic defenses throughout the tenure of Ray Lewis. It wasn't just 1 year, right? That's what people forget. 2,000 tackles, which is insane. 31 interceptions, 41 and a half sacks, 19 forced fumbles, 20 recoveries. He also 2 Super Bowl wins, closer to the beginning and at the end. Didn't win an MVP, which honestly is somewhat surprising, but he did win multiple Defensive Player of the Years. So yeah, Ray Lewis, definitely top 15 in my opinion. Johnny Unitas at 13 is fair. I think Johnny Unitas is probably the 3rd or 4th greatest quarterback in NFL history, and I would include him in the top 15. The NFL's best quarterback during the league's first 50 years, according to this article. Johnny U led the Colts to the NFL titles in 58 and 59, a Super Bowl title in 70. He was the winning quarterback in what many consider the greatest game in NFL history, the 1958 NFL Championship between the Colts and Giants, the first overtime in league history. His record of 47 straight games with a touchdown lasted until 2012. I remember when that was broken by Drew Brees. That was pretty crazy. Yeah, but Johnny U had the pre-Super Bowl titles as well as, those NFL titles, Super Bowl title as well. And then he had the MVPs, the individual accolades, the legacy and the impact that he had on the game as the first real quarterback, the first real signal caller, the first real offensive coordinator at the position type of guy that kind of led into the legacy of Peyton Manning. So that's why Johnny Unitas is so important. I would agree with that. Dick Butkus ahead of Ray Lewis, I would disagree with, but I understand why he is on the list. I'd probably move him below Ray Lewis, but I'm fair with including him in the top 15. The word legend is often used loosely in sports, but not in Butkus' situation. The thing about Butkus is how tough he was, how physical he was. He was absolutely ferocious. He would take your head off. He was fear personified. That's Dick Butkus, right? He was a ferocious tackler and an impeccable in pass coverage, according to this article. He picked off at least 1 pass in every year of his career and pulled down 5 passes during his standout rookie season. Yeah, incredible. One of the all-time sports names as well, sports imagery as well. Number 11, Patrick Mahomes. Okay. No, I'm sorry. Patrick Mahomes is great and all that, and the best quarterback of this era. He has not surpassed Johnny Unitas in terms of legacy. Patrick Mahomes is not the 11th greatest player in NFL history. He's played like 6-7 years. How long has he played? He's played since 2018 technically, so like 7 or 8 years now. He has 2 MVPs, 3 Super Bowls, 5 appearances. And he's been the best quarterback probably twice in his NFL career in a season. I think that's fair. Because I think there were years where Brady was better, Rodgers was better, Allen was better, Lamar was better. I think there are years in there. So Patrick Mahomes is maybe for me not even a top 5 quarterback of all time, but he's probably in the top 7 or 8. He's definitely top 50 of all time. 11th of all time? So you think he's better than Johnny U, which I disagree with. You think he's better than Aaron Rodgers, which is debatable. You think I guess Elway was above Aaron Rodgers, which is interesting. You think he's better than, is he better than Payton? Are we going to see that on this list? I don't know. We'll see. Patrick Mahomes 11th? I don't think he's ahead of Otto Graham in terms of legacy yet, personally. And then that's only one position. That's just quarterback. So, yeah, I don't see it. Number 10, so you have Dan Marino ahead of him. I would put Mahomes ahead of Marino. Marino, incredible player, but did not win a Super Bowl. You can't put him in the top 10 players of all time. I'm sorry. He didn't win a Super Bowl. As great as he is, he might be the best passer in NFL history. The best pure passer, right? Release, arm strength, accuracy, precision. Yeah, skill-wise. But if we're talking skill-wise, where's Aaron Rodgers? You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, Dan Marino, one of the best seasons, if not the best season of all time in 1984. 3 straight touchdown leader seasons. Comeback player of the year in 94. NFL's all-time career leader in yards and touchdowns when he retired. But that has far been surpassed, by multiple players at this point. I can't. He went to 1 Super Bowl. His playoff legacy is not very good. And honestly, like, his prime and his peak in the 80s was incredible, but there was a large portion of his career where it was not that fantastic. And a lot of people forget about that. So Dan Marino to me is like the 8th, 9th quarterback of all time. He's not the 10th best player in NFL history. I don't know which ranking to you guys is more egregious, Dan Marino at 10 or Patrick Mahomes at 11. I was expecting Mahomes to be the most egregious. Number 9, Barry Sanders. This is a good ranking. I think Barry Sanders could even be higher, to be honest with you. Unless you saw him play, it's hard to describe the experience of watching Barry Sanders. Guys, just go watch the highlights. It will give you the experience. Trust me. He made the impossible look routine. That's a good line. He turned 5-yard losses into long runs. And honestly, like, this is a guy that he retired too soon, right? He retired too soon. He basically accomplished everything a running back could accomplish. He, in 10 years, had 15,000 yards. He had 4 rushing titles. He ran for 2,000 yards, right? He accomplished everything you could accomplish, except he was never on a very good team. He was on some good teams that made the playoffs, and he even won a playoff game against the Cowboys. But he was never on great teams, and that kind of inspired him to retire early. I wonder what his numbers would have looked like if he would have just played 5 more years, which he was very capable of doing, I think. At least 3 more years. He probably would have had better numbers than Emmitt Smith, even though he wasn't in the same situation. So I honestly think Barry Sanders retiring early has kind of hurt his legacy from that standpoint. But at the same time, if you're talking about a running back that was the most fun to watch in the history of football, I think it's hard to argue against Barry Sanders. There's a lot of people that put Barry Sanders number 1 as the best running back of all time. Number 8, Reggie White. Can't argue that. The Minister of Defense, compiled a Hall of Fame career with the Eagles and the Packers. There are stories from players that played against, Reggie White, like from Phil Simms, where it's like, this guy was just like... This guy was so scary. He was unblockable. So he's like fast, quick, powerful, humongous, especially for that era. Like, it made no sense for that era. And he was able to win a Super Bowl with the Packers. He was on some of the best defenses of all time with Philadelphia as well. Multi-time defensive player of the year. I'm glad that he's above Aaron Donald because I would agree with that. Number 7, Lawrence Taylor, I think is too low. I think Lawrence Taylor is a top 3 or 4 player in NFL history. He's the best defensive player in NFL history. He changed the NFL. He changed pass protection. He's that good. He changed pass protection. He probably could have played safety. He was that athletic, right? Defensive player of the year and defensive rookie of the year honors. He won the MVP as well, leading the Giants to their first Super Bowl title. I mean, he arguably has like the greatest defensive player season in NFL history. And he basically created a position, outside linebacker essentially. So I don't know. Like, I think he should be higher. Peyton Manning, number 6. Okay. I don't know if 6 is too high or not, but okay. If Brady is Jack Nicklaus, then Manning is Arnold Palmer. Who's Tiger Woods? That's my question. Brady has more titles, but Manning has his own unique legacy that includes a record 5 league MVPs. Manning is amazing. No, I've said it many times as a Patriots fan. Despite our domination of Manning at times, there was no quarterback that I feared more as a fan than Peyton Manning. Because I don't think there's a quarterback other than Brady who had the control of the game, who could control the game in the palm of his hands like Peyton Manning. You just got the sense that no matter what you were doing on defense, he was always going to find an answer eventually. He always, he had everything in the palm of his hand. He just knew. He was so smart. And I just don't see that from quarterbacks nowadays. His control had its own aura to it. He wasn't the most athletic guy. He didn't really have the strongest arm, but his precision, his intelligence, and his accuracy was incredible. I think he had one of the best touch balls of all time too. And he was very good at avoiding sacks, very good at avoiding negative plays. I think his biggest downfall is his playoff legacy and his tendency to choke. And that's honestly the difference between him and Tom Brady. Tom Brady was an absolute killer in the playoffs while Peyton Manning, something about him just wasn't able to play at that same level come crunch time. That's the difference between him and Joe Montana, perhaps. Joe Montana at number 5. I'd agree with that. I think that's fair. For a long time considered the greatest quarterback of all time until Tom Brady kind of surpassed him, in my opinion, at least in 2014. But I think that's most widely considered when Tom Brady passed Joe Montana. His Super Bowl legacy is incredible, right? His playoffs, pretty awesome. His individual stuff is kind of overlooked, to be fair. And Montana was calm and cool. Not the most athletic. Steve Young was more athletic than him. But I think Joe was just more calculated. He had that mix of calculation, precision, but then also the demeanor to stay cool. So at number 5, Joe Montana. At number 4, Walter Payton. I love the respect for Walter Payton here. I love it. I don't think Walter Payton is talked enough about. I think Walter Payton is an athlete in general that does not get recognized enough across sports. I don't hear Walter Payton's name enough. I know that they have the Walter Payton Man of the Year, but Walter Payton was a great human being, but he was also an incredible running back. You can make an argument that he's the greatest running back of all time because I think he had everything in his game. You can make an argument that Barry Sanders was the most electric, and Jim Brown was the most dominant, but Walter Payton was tough. He was quick. He was elusive. He was fast. He was a great pass catcher, right? He did everything. He had the longevity. He had the peak seasons. He was not always on a good team, and he proved that. He was on an all-time team, and he proved that, right? And Walter Payton kind of set the tone for what it meant to be the work ethic of a player. You know what I mean? So I just feel like he is not respected the way that he should be by a lot of fans nowadays. I never hear his name. No, the most fearless player of all time, they say in the article. Led them to a championship after gaining 2,000 all-purpose yards. There you go. Like, all-purpose master, too. Like, better receiver than Brown, better receiver than Barry, but still a great runner, too. At number 3, Jim Brown. Can't disagree. I think what I'm expecting from this top 3 is probably going to be pretty accurate. Jim Brown at number 3, the most dominant running back of all time. In my opinion, the greatest running back of all time. You can make an argument on best, but the greatest is fair. I mean, led the NFL in rushing 8 times, carried the Browns to the league title in 1964, with his career yards per game average being over 100 yards, 104 yards per game. Remains the highest in NFL history. His career stats almost make no sense. Like, you look at his thing and it's like, led the league, like his whole career. It's like, led the league his whole career. And one of the greatest athletes of all time, too. One of the greatest lacrosse players of all time. Like, Jim Brown was just different. Like a different species. I could only imagine trying to tackle that guy. At number 2, Jerry Rice. I'm not sure who I'd have, Jim Brown or Jerry Rice. If you guys want to make an argument in the comments, who would you have above, Jerry Rice or Jim Brown? I'll throw Lawrence Taylor in there because I think Lawrence Taylor belongs in that conversation too. Jerry Rice, he's on the Mount Rushmore. The thing about Rice that makes no sense is his longevity in an era of receiver play that never really saw that type of longevity. Like, Jerry Rice at 40 years old had 1,000 yards. 40 years old in like 2004. Like, that doesn't happen. That kind of solidifies his entire career. 22 touchdowns in 12 games. That's insane. Right? Like, his playoff stats stood forever. Playoff clutch machine, Super Bowl machine. Now, obviously played in an incredible offensive scheme with 2 of the best quarterbacks of all time. There's no question about that, right? But he was also able to go to the Raiders and still play well. You know what I mean? So, like, Rice is just, greatest receiver of all time. You can make an argument whether or not he was the most talented, but the greatest, there's no conversation. Like, the greatest, okay? Number 1 is Tom Brady. Thank you for getting it right. I mean, if you didn't, you probably wouldn't be employed, but it's hard to pinpoint when Brady ended the argument for the greatest NFL player. I think when he went to Tampa and won a Super Bowl. I think it was before that, but I think for like 99% of individuals, that basically said, like, yeah, this is just like undeniable at this point. Like, he won 6 Super Bowls with the Patriots. And then he went to Tampa Bay, and in his first season, in a shortened offseason where nobody could talk to anybody or contact anybody and everyone was wearing masks, he won another Super Bowl with a totally different team that was the losingest franchise in NFL history. When Tom Brady did that at 41, 42, 43, whatever it was, when he did that, I think everyone was like, okay, like, we can stop. We can stop now. Like, yeah, he's the greatest of all time, okay? And then after that, he still, like, should have won an MVP the year after that. Like, he led the NFL in touchdowns and in yards a year after he won the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay. Like, so, yeah, this guy's the greatest player of all time. And this is a good little mention. I am starting a new YouTube channel, guys. I know that I've mentioned it before. It's called BLV Beyond. And my first video is going to be it's going to be a Tom Brady series to start off the channel because, you know, it's the player that has inspired me the most, the athlete that's inspired me the most to be a content creator. And I want to do his career well and his career justice. So I'm starting off with how Tom Brady was never a game manager. That's going to be my first video. So thought I would mention that. Go subscribe to BLV Beyond. I'll put the link in the description as well as in the pinned comment. So you guys can subscribe when the videos do come out. It's going to be a video essay channel. So there's not going to be like a video every day. It's going to be like a video like every once in a while when something inspires me, but they're going to be really high quality. So look forward to that, guys. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. This is a good list. I'm not sure It was my favorite list. I guess I should continue and talk about like the players that didn't make the list. So I think overall, there's maybe many quarterbacks on this list. I think that's kind of my main problem. When I'm thinking about players that should have been on this list, I think Ed Reed comes to mind. I think Ed Reed should have been on this list. Deion Sanders should have been on this list. I think, is there any linebackers that I would have put on this list? I think they got Ray Lewis. They got Dick Butkus. I think those are the two obvious ones. Gronk should be on this list 100%. Running back wise, I think fair, honestly. Like, I don't know if Gale would be on my list. Sayers would be on my list, but wide receiver wise, that's difficult. But T.O. is kind of there. I don't know if he would exactly be on my list, though, but he would be close. John Hanna would be on this list for sure. He's the greatest guard or interior offensive lineman of all time, so he would be on the list. And I'm just doing this off the top of my head. I think Bruce Smith would maybe be on this list for me. I think he was like a 3-time defensive player of the year. Even like, I know this is crazy, but like J.J. Watt maybe didn't have the longevity, but dominance-wise, he would be in the conversation. I think those are the main ones that I'm thinking of. Aaron Rodgers, would maybe be there as well. And Otto Graham would maybe be there. And then if you're including players that were pre-Super Bowl, like Sammy Baugh, but I'm not going to really get crazy about that. But yeah, so those are the guys that I think maybe should have been on the list. There it is, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. Gronk, spike the like button. We'll see you soon. Peace.